All right, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. Here with Tesla Tom, and we've got Finn Peacock here from famous website solarquotes.com.au. Hey, Finn, thanks for joining us.
No worries at all.
I'm sure if you were looking for solar panels or batteries in Australia, you'd come across Finn's website. It's a fantastic resource. So I guess, Finn, solar panels are very popular in Australia, but there are still a lot of people looking for panels. What's kind of the first thing you tell people when they ask, what should I look for when I go shopping for panels?
Well, I mean, the most important thing, if you get this right, you should have a good experience. Well, you will have a good experience, is a good installer. Even if you don't have a clue about solar panel brands, most people don't, inverter brands. If you talk to a good installer, they'll recommend good brands. They're only going to recommend brands that they're happy with because they're liable for the solar panels for up to 25 years. So a good guy that isn't planning on going anywhere is not going to recommend a bad panel.
Yeah. I mean, how do you find a good installer? Do you just rely on reviews online?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's a problem I've been trying to solve for the last 11 years with SolarQuotes. So the easy answer for me to give is go to SolarQuotes, put your postcode in, and trust me. But if you don't want to do that, I understand. Yeah, the other thing, it's just research. So go online, Google the installer name, reviews. Don't just look at one review site because you can, unfortunately, game some of the review sites. Look across lots of review sites. So Google reviews, Facebook reviews, product reviews. SolarQuotes has more solar installer reviews than anywhere else. And that'll give you a feel for the installer. Then the critical thing is to look. All good review sites let you filter the worst reviews. So go and have a look at the absolute worst reviews of the installer. All installers drop the ball. All installers have grumpy customers every now and again. But if they got a 1 or a 2-star review, you want to see what they did to earn that 1-star review and whether it got rectified or not. So, someone might give a 1-star review because, maybe the installer was grumpy, or maybe the install was late, or maybe there was a big delay with the meter getting installed, which can be completely out of the installer's control. Or they might have got a 1-star review because they took the deposit and never installed the system. Or a famous one on our site is an installer blocked a plumbing vent with a solar panel, and the lady's toilets all overflowed, and she ended up living in a hotel where they cleaned all the crap off her floor. So did the solar installer do something really bad for the 1-star reviews? If they did, move on to the next one. There's plenty of solar installers in Australia. The other thing you might want to do is have a quick Google, solar installer name space Whirlpool. Have a look on the Whirlpool forums. That's pretty no holds barred forum. The quality of the advice can vary, but generally, if there's a really bad installer, they're not going to get away with not having some stories shared on Whirlpool. So yeah, do your research. And if you want to use SolarQuotes, please do, because I literally personally stand by every single installer on that site. I vet them all.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a great site. There's so many good quality reviews there for sure. Is it better to go with someone local in your area, or is it better to go with a big national or statewide installer, in your opinion?
In my experience, there are some great national installers around. There are also some terrible ones. I mean, one of the best ones I would say that gets it right is SolarGain. They're a client of SolarQuotes. They've been around at least 10 years. I think they've been going since 2008. So they're a really good national firm. But in general, I find the people who have the best experiences do tend to use the smaller local guys. So yeah, always at least get a quote off a local guy or two. And that might be, I've got no problem with, your sole traders, your one-man bands. If they're local and they've got a good name and they care about the craftsmanship of their install, they can be a really good bet. Up to you might have a medium-sized company that's local that specializes in solar. They can be really good too. Be wary of the really big guys that advertise heavily on the TV and only advertise based on low price, because you buy the cheapest solar system on the market, you're unlikely to have a good experience.
Yeah. Is there a standards for installers currently in Australia?
Yeah, there is. It's a fairly well regulated space. So you've got the individual installers, that's the actual electricians, the people, to install solar and claim federal solar rebate. You have to be accredited by the Clean Energy Council. So that's the actual individual, the person. People get confused. They say, I want an accredited solar installer. Depends whether you're talking about the person or the company. There's no such thing as an accredited solar company. The closest you've got is the Clean Energy Council approved solar retailer scheme. But that's a voluntary kind of extra certification that the company can get if they want to pay the money and do all the work to become an approved solar retailer. Unfortunately, being an approved solar retailer is not a guarantee that the company's any good. There's a long list of them. There's hundreds now, and there's a few on there that I wouldn't recommend to my worst enemy. Well, maybe my worst enemy, but I wouldn't recommend to many. So, yeah, the individual has to be Clean Energy Council accredited. That's like an electrician's extra qualification. But the company, there is no certification that they have to be, unless you're buying solar with one of the state-based rebates. So let's have a think. You've got the Victorian solar rebate, which is over and above the federal rebate. It's an extra, at the moment, $1,888 off your solar system. So you can get very good value systems in Victoria right now. There's a South Australian battery rebate, which as we speak is worth $6,000, but from Wednesday, the 15th of April, will be worth $4,000. If you want to participate in those two schemes, they insist that the company is an approved solar retailer. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, let's talk about rebates. Have you found that with increasing rebates from different states, prices have gone up as well?
Yes. That's generally what happens is, so we've had a federal rebate for the best part of 10 years. That's reducing about 10% every year until 2031, when it'll be, fade down to zero. And that's a brilliant scheme. It's worked really well. It's probably the biggest reason that Australia's got the best value, most efficient installers in the world. I mean, Australia is, I think, the cheapest place to buy solar in the world. And that's because this rebate scheme has, boosted the industry and got the installers, very well practiced in installing solar systems. On top of that, you have these state-based rebates occasionally pop up. And yes, you do generally see that. So in Victoria, for example, last year, 2019, they introduced, it started off as $2,225. And yeah, the prices generally went up, but that was understandable because there was a lot of admin for the installers to actually participate in that rebate. So, that scheme probably took $2,225 off the cost of the solar, but it probably also increased the prices by close to $1,000. So you're probably closer to $1,200 better off. But that's generally what we see is when free money comes in into any state, prices do go up a bit. It's kind of supply and demand.
Yeah, that seems to happen across many industries actually. If you look around.
Yeah, so it's very rare you get the full rebate.
Let's talk about warranties. I mean, if a lot of solar panels have got a 25-year warranty.
You've got two types of warranty on a solar panel. You've got the performance warranty, which is at a minimum is 25 years. I can't think of any solar panel that hasn't got a 25-year performance warranty. And then you've got the manufacturer's warranty, which is anywhere between 10 years and 25 years, typically about 12 at the moment. You do get some panels that have 25-year on both. SunPower, LG, REC, Hyundai, there might be some others that I've forgotten. And that's important because the performance warranty, kind of an insider's secret, is that no one really respects the performance warranty of a solar panel in the industry. And we're very open about this on SolarQuotes. It's the way they write the performance warranties, and we've pretty much read most of them, is they're very easy for the manufacturer to wriggle out of based on their warranty documentation. Now, the interesting catch there is that we've always said on SolarQuotes, it doesn't matter what the manufacturers say in their performance warranty because Australian consumer law is very, very strong. And a lot of people don't realize that Australian consumer law overrides any manufacturer's warranty or performance warranty. So I still haven't seen a precedent in court But when you think about the fact that solar panels in Australia only started getting installed in volume about 9 or 10 years ago, we're hitting a place now where solar panels are getting older than their manufacturer's warranty. So if they fail, they're going to start claiming on the performance warranty. And hopefully some savvy consumers, when they go to the solar panel company and the solar panel company says, it's performance warranty, we're going to get out of it with this clause, they actually take them to their local tribunal and claim their rights under Australian consumer law, which is the small print can't override the big print. So if an Australian consumer looks at a solar panel and is sold a solar panel on the understanding that it has a 25-year performance warranty, any reasonable person, and that's the language in the legals, any reasonable person would expect that solar panel to be replaced if it failed within the first 25 years. So under Australian consumer law, you're very well protected, but no matter what the warranty says, but you'd probably have to be willing to test it in court. So just be aware that the short answer to your question is go for as long a manufacturer's warranty as possible. So I recommend a 25-year manufacturer's warranty now, because in the last 12 months, we've got these reasonably priced solar panels. I've got Jaecoo, LG, SunPower, REC, and a few others that'll give you a 25-year manufacturer's warranty, which in theory should be very straightforward to claim if anything goes wrong.
I mean, if something does go wrong, that's the next question. The first port of call your installer?
Yeah, so under Australian consumer law, this is something else that many people don't understand. If you buy a solar panel brand from a solar installer, it's the contract's between you and the company that took your money. The company that took your money has absolute responsibility under Australian consumer law for all the warranties. So if you go to Fred Solar and buy an Acme solar panel and the Acme solar panel fails, the guy that runs Fred Solar can't say, Acme Solar won't honour their warranty, so tough. He's actually got to honour the warranty out of his own pocket if the manufacturer doesn't. You go to the installer. If the installer is still around, they have an absolute legal responsibility to make good the warranty on the products they sold you, no matter what the manufacturer does. I mean, luckily, if you buy a good brand in Australia, they're generally up to now been very good with warranty replacements. So, but yeah, first port of call is the installer. If your installer's not around, sometimes they disappear, they close down, sometimes they go broke, unfortunately. Then you go to the Australian office of the manufacturer. Okay. And before you do that, read up on Australian consumer law, because we're incredibly well protected over here.
Yeah, which goes back to your point to finding a good installer in the first place.
So so solar panels are at least a 25-year investment. If you choose a good installer with a good reputation, who's if they're local, they're not going anywhere, or if you're going for one of these national firms, go for someone like SolarGain, who've been around for 10 years, unlikely to go anywhere. So that's your first port of call. If they're not around anymore, because 25 years is a long time, then if you've gone with a good brand of solar panel, the chances are they'll still be in Australia, so you can knock on their door for any warranty issues. So that's how you protect yourself. You go with a good installer, you go with a good brand.
Yep. Quick question about panel brands. I mean, you've got obviously the well-established guys like REC and LG. Then you've got a kind of Chinese players which have got a bad reputation over the years. They are getting better, I believe. I mean, apart from the warranty on these things, I mean, is there much difference in terms of performance in the top brands versus the sort of medium average brands?
So, I mean, there's good Chinese brands like Jaecoo. They're an excellent Chinese brand, been around for a long time. Who else is good? Longi Solar, Suntech, Trina, Canadian, which despite the name are actually Chinese. Almost all made in China. They do have one factory in Canada. JA Solar, very good. Seraphim, they're good panels. So there are some good Chinese brands. The difference between the cheaper Chinese brands and the more expensive brands is two things. One, the cheaper Chinese brands generally have a 12-year manufacturer's warranty, compared to the more expensive guys like LG, SunPower, REC, Jaecoo, who have a 25-year manufacturer's warranty. Initially, the performance of all the panels are pretty close. I mean, within a few percent generally. What you'll probably find, although it's hard to say because it takes years, is after a decade or so, I would imagine that the more expensive solar panels would have degraded less. That's likely. So you'll probably be getting more power out of a expensive panel after 10 years than one of the cheaper panels. But we're probably talking, they'll be within, I would imagine, 10% of each other. But it's really hard to predict because they're improving the technology of the solar panels all the time. So, how do you predict degradation of a panel with brand new technology that's only been around for a year? How do you predict what that's going to be in 10 years? You can't really. We've got a chart on our website where we basically, I put all the brands that I trust in order of price. You've got the cheaper ones on the left, the more expensive ones on the right. If they're on that chart, they are literally brands I would be happy to have on my roof. And then it's up to whether you're the kind of person that likes to buy, the more prestigious brands or the cheaper brands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to inverters. How much of an influence does a good inverter make on a system?
In terms of energy yield, they make very little difference. So, most of the inverters you buy now, from the cheap Chinese ones, the cheaper Chinese ones to the more expensive, Fronius SMA that are made in Europe, they're all around 98% efficiency. So yeah, efficiency is pretty much the same. Where you'll see the difference is in the longevity. So you will almost certainly find that the more expensive inverters do last longer. Most inverters, a good premium inverter should last 15 years, and they can come with a 10-year warranty. The cheaper Chinese inverters, you can get a 10-year warranty for. Generally, you have to pay a few $100s more, and I'd recommend doing that. But they're more likely to last closer to 10 years than closer to 15 years. So, but then the difference in price between, a premium 5 kilowatt inverter and a budget but still, reasonable brand 5 kilowatt inverter can be about $1,000, $1,200. So, it's up to you if you want to pay the extra. The other thing that makes the difference is the quality of support and the quality of the monitoring. So I'm not a big fan of the monitoring software on the cheaper Chinese inverters. I find it pretty icky. Whereas Fronius SMA tend to have really nice monitoring software. So.
And again, if any issues crop up with the inverter, do you take up your beef with the installer or with the manufacturer?
Yeah, it's all the installer, because the installer's taking your money under Australian consumer law. They have to fix it. They can't say, "Oh, manufacturer won't help me." Whatever representations they made to you when they sold the system, they have to honour, even if it's verbal. So yeah, if they, for example, told you verbally that there's a 20-year warranty on the inverter under Australian consumer law, they'd have to honour that promise. Proving it would be a different thing. But if you go with a good installer, they're going to do the right thing by you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, let's talk about microinverters versus string inverters. Your thoughts? Should we go for one over the other?
I really like microinverters. I've got them on my house, but then my house is built of straw, so I didn't really want high voltage DC going through the straw bales, so I'm a bit weird like that. The advice I give is, if you've got a simple roof, if you've got no shade, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a string inverter. Nothing wrong at all. It'll be cheaper. If it's a good one, it should be very reliable. If you have a complicated roof, if you have some complicated shading going on, microinverters are great. The advantages of microinverters is they are safer in theory, because at the panel they convert the DC voltage into AC voltage. With a string inverter, you can get up to 600 volts DC in a residential install in Australia. They're not allowed more than 600 volts. High voltage DC will arc much more easily than 230 volts AC. So, but having said that, if you're getting a good installer and he does a good install, a DC system is completely safe. The other nice thing about microinverters is, if it's your thing, you can monitor each panel individually. You can see exactly the power of each panel. Trust me, that gets boring quite quickly, but it is quite nice. The other thing is they're fault tolerant. So 10 years ago, people used to worry about the reliability of microinverters on the back of a panel on an Australian roof. The only microinverter game in town, really, in my opinion, is Enphase, and they have absolutely nailed the reliability of those things. And if one does fail, the rest of the system will be fine. So if you've got 20 panels on your roof, one microinverter fails, you only lose 1/20 of your production. If you have a string inverter and that fails, your whole system's gone. So On the downsides, microinverters, they're more expensive. It's as simple as that. Expect it to add, 15, 20% to the cost of your system. So yeah, you've got to weigh the pros and cons.
Is the fire risk real? Like, have you heard any horror stories in your time?
Yeah, the fire risk is real if the system isn't installed well. So again, avoid installers that cut the costs on the install. There's a huge difference between a good and a bad install. And it comes down to whether the installer cares. It comes down to the reasons the installer's in the game. If the installer wants to be around for the long term, they're not going to be successful if they're going around putting badly installed systems on people's roofs. It will catch up with them. And we've seen that over 10 years. We've had some big, dodgy companies doing terrible installs. And guess what? They just disappear and start up under another name. So, yeah. And again, that's with the local guys. If they're local and they've got a good reputation and they live locally and, people know them, and they care, they care about the quality of their work. It's not going to be in their interest to put a bad system on the roof. If they're a big company that's selling very cheap systems and just banging them out, yeah, it's not impossible to do well, but it's very hard to do well. So yeah, the quality of the install is important. If you're really worried about it, microinverters, are safer. They're more tolerant of a bad install. There are a lot of scare stories from people that sell microinverters claiming that you can't make a DC system safe. I don't agree with those people.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, that seems to be the theme. I mean, good install is all the difference, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, let's move on to batteries now. I mean, which would you choose? What's the cream of the crop, and what's the differences between them all?
Well, you'll be happy to hear that you can't go past the Powerwall 2. It's a brilliant battery. You've got one. I've got one. It really is, if you want an AC coupled battery, so if you have an existing solar system and you want to easily bolt a battery onto it, you honestly can't go wrong with a Tesla Powerwall 2. I'm sure they just work. They just work really well. They handle backup really well. The monitoring is beautiful. Got a Tesla car, they integrate nicely with that. Tesla Powerwall 2 is great. Other good batteries, if you want to DC couple a battery, and there's reasons you might do that, that's an option if you're getting the whole system, solar and battery, from scratch. That's where essentially you use the same inverter for the solar and the battery.
That's a hybrid inverter, isn't it?
Yeah, that's called a hybrid inverter. So that's generally DC coupled. If you want to do that, some really good options are, the ones I'd go for are LG Chem as a battery, and probably BYD. They're batteries that I've talking to installers. They've got really good, had really good experience with. And then there's probably we've got a battery comparison table on the SolarQuotes. If you Google battery comparison table, you'll find it. And that's got all the batteries we know of that are available in Australia with pricing. But a lot of those are they might be good brands, but they're very young brands, a lot of them, and they're unproven. So yeah, there's some good stuff there's some nice looking batteries on there, but if it was my house, I'd be thinking Powerwall 2, can't really go wrong. LG Chem or BYD for your DC coupling. One reason you might want to DC couple is some of the electricity networks around Australia are very strict on how many kilowatts of inverter you can have on your house, and they might say you can only have 5 kilowatts worth of inverters, and they might include the battery inverter in that. So if you have 5 kilowatt solar inverter and then you have a 5 kilowatt Powerwall 2, they say, nah, can't put it on, in which case you get really grumpy and then end up DC coupling because that's only got the one 5 kilowatt inverter. One thing to be careful of is if you have 3-phase and you want backup, it can get quite tricky. It's not impossible, but talk to your installer about exactly what you want out of the backup. If you want your solar panels to power your battery without the grid, that is possible with 3-phase, but it's not straightforward. So you have to ask for that. You should ask for that anyway, to make sure you get it. So think about what kind of backup you want, and make sure you tell your installer what circuits you want backed up, because generally you don't back up the whole house, although it's up to you whether you want backup that's going to work, whether you want backup full stop, and then whether you want backup that can use the solar panels without the grid, because that's a bit more tricky sometimes. Powerwall 2 does it out of the box, unless you're on 3-phase. You can only back up 1 phase. So yeah.
I mean, through my research, I understand that the Powerwall 2 can't back up all 3 phases. You can back up each single phase, but not if you've got a 3-phase appliance like air conditioning. Are there any
Right.
are there any batteries on the market currently that can do that, back up all 3 phases?
Yes, there are. I'd be very confident that Powerwall 2 will be able to do it soon. I think they'll upgrade the gateway to do that. I've got a 3-phase house. I've got Powerwall on 1 phase, and when the grid goes down, I just have all my essential circuits on that 1 phase, and it works really well. The 2 of the phases go down, 1 stays up. Where people run into issues is if they have a 3-phase solar inverter. A 3-phase solar inverter needs to see all 3 phases up to stay powered. So if 2 of your phases go down, you lose your solar. So your battery can still power your house, but once your battery's flat because you can't charge it from the solar without the grid. So, and there are some AC coupled batteries that will work on 3-phase if you have a 3-phase appliance that you really need to back up when the zombies come. So yeah, I mean, it's possible some batteries do it, and I'd be very confident Tesla Powerwall 2 will do it at some point.
Yeah, I guess the Powerwall 2's advantage is that it's got a huge storage capacity, like 13.5. I don't think any other company compares to that at the moment, is there?
Yeah, and here's a rumor for you, although I asked Tesla to confirm it and they didn't get back to me. The rumor is, and I haven't confirmed this, is that the capacity is going up to 15.5 kilowatt hours soon.
Wow, with a Powerwall 3?
Wow. It's either an upgraded Powerwall 2 or a Powerwall 3, who knows? But that's the rumor I've heard.
Yeah. That's kind of what we're hoping with the battery day coming up with the announcement. So
yeah, maybe
part of that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It'd be nice. I reckon my battery covers me for most of the year, but in winter it's when I need the more capacity. I reckon with a bigger battery.
Yeah, and as they degrade, the benefit of the extra capacity is as they degrade, you'll have more capacity up your sleeve. Yeah.
All right, Finn. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been certainly a very enlightening conversation. So I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I've got plenty of time at the moment.
Same here. Thanks, Finn. Take care. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Bye.